zone. I'll be the stars in your sky. I'll be your goon as your beauty dies with you. Nothing haunts me like you do. You'll be my beast when the night falls on you. I'll be your queen. Of your hearts, I want you to know. Of your hearts, I'm not ready to go. Do you believe in my heart you're the chosen one?
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Hey.
Happy Thursday night. And it's the first episode of Coffee and Cresties After Dark. It's so weird to hear my own music every single time I start a podcast. And now there's officially a third song out in the universe on YouTube because I have one of my songs for the Coffee and Cresties, the morning show. There's one that my husband uses with the gang on the Lamish chat, and now this is officially the third song. And I'm going to start running out of songs if I keep adding intros.
Stay tuned for the album. Stay tuned for the album.
There is an album. It was on iTunes. I got to get it back on iTunes. Apparently, it's not available in the States because there's a couple people who are asking about it. And I can send the link because I'm silly. I bought my own album on iTunes. But I also have a whole bunch of physical copies like of the CD. So I did the back vocals, right? So the lead vocalist is one of my best friends, and she has boxes of these CDs in her house. So I need to go get a whole bunch of copies and maybe start like sending them out to people who like the music. Because I think, Mark, you were saying you were having a hard time finding it online, eh?
Yep. So we will definitely accept a copy. We will definitely do that.
Yeah.
There you go. Am I I guess I'm not the only one drinking a coffee tonight? Or is that a coffee in there?
Coffee and Cresties.
That's not a coffee. I tried. I got the Bailey's cream coffee, like the Bailey's cream coffee or whatever, and it's not spiked, but it tastes just like Bailey's and coffee, which is pretty delicious. It felt appropriate for an evening show.
I got wife bucks.
There you go.
That's a joke at work where I work at. Everybody gets Starbucks and I never get it, and I always bring my hot coffee and my cold coffee. I'm like, I'm good. I got wife bucks.
There you go. I've actually stopped drinking Starbucks. I think I'm on my 4th week now. It's really helped on my wallet. Like, it's so expensive.
Yep.
Not judging anybody who likes Starbucks and drinks it all the time, but I wasn't just drinking regular coffee at Starbucks. I'm drinking lattes and stuff, and that gets to be expensive.
Yeah.
It gets to be a lot. Yeah, so I'll introduce, as you guys can see, I'm not by myself today when I start this off. I have 2 co-hosts with me. So I have Mark from the Gecko Room and Quincy from Gecko Nerd. And I'm sure those of you who have tuned in have seen them before because they have been guests on Coffee and Cresties, the morning show. Definitely going with a different vibe tonight in the evening. Some mood lighting, which you said matched the little logo at the bottom.
Yep.
Trying to go with the vibe. So let's see who we got in the room today. We got Shauna in the house. Good evening, Shauna. We got Basement Pythons. Hello. I heard there was free beer, and there is no free beer. And this is a fellow contestant in the 50 Minutes of Lame. Regan Renee, that's Charlie. Let's go. Also another contestant in the 50 Minutes of Lame. We got Kristen in the house from Cresty Works. Hello. Kristen has been a huge supporter and has been campaigning for me like crazy. And I just want to say thanks. We got tag pythons. What's up? A lot of 15 minutes delaying contestants in the chat room today. Welcome, welcome. 319. Let's do this. Thanks for joining. Again, another contestant. We have Eva. Hey, hey, hey. And then we got the fat man himself, Chris. What's up? And the room. Thanks for hopping on. Chris, it's a lot easier for you to hop on an evening show than an early morning show. You got Cassandra in the house. Thanks for joining, Cassandra. Glad to have you. Some of these people are probably here because of you guys, and I might not know them, eh? So you can jump in at any time. Chris Gosney from MG Geckos. Thanks for joining. Let's see who else we have. We have AJ in the room. What's up? Celtic Reptiles. We got a full house. We got a lot of people in the chat today. Kevin's in the house from Omni Geckos. Thanks for joining. And I think, am I missing anybody? Oh, Cresty Millions. Welcome. And we got Aaron. Thanks for joining, Aaron. I think I got all the shout outs for now, but if you pop in later, I'll shout you out, put you up on the screen. So we're talking gecko genetics today, which is
Gecko
a
genetics.
subject. So what are we talking today, guys?
Gecko genetics. We're talking about phantoms.
Phantoms. We have a whole bunch of pictures, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through them. I am not saying by any means that I am a gecko genetic genius over here. I'm still learning. I'm still new. And there's been so many awesome things that have been released that has a bunch of information. And I thought it'd be great to kind of deep dive and show examples and kind of help people kind of see and visualize. Because I know on myself, I'm very visual. And when you're looking at things like, Little Monsters has an awesome foundation genetics on their site, right? And the pictures have been a huge help when you're reading the description and really seeing what's there. What have you found helpful online, like to try to find through your process of like identifying things?
Mark, you want to take it away? Definitely the foundation genetics.
I use foundation genetics from when they did videos with Tom Faza. With Tom, I can't pronounce his last name, but that was amazing for me. Still working on the terminology portion of it and learning how to use that terminology, but LM Reptiles, Foundation Genetics with Pangea and Tom, that was amazing. The Gecko Pod skits that they do with LM Reptiles, and they go through it. That is amazing stuff also. And Anthony Caponetto on his website, he has a little section there where he discusses the genetics. Yeah, shout out to all those guys because they help answer a lot of questions. And Quincy, I use Quincy a lot also.
Quincy. Yeah, I know for sure that it's a lot, eh? And like, I know when I first got into geckos, like just trying to, I think that people sometimes forget how lucky you are as ball python breeders to even have like things like the calculator and everything where you can input different genes and figure out what it makes and how it works. They're so far beyond where we're at still with crested geckos, but we're catching up, right? Like, and it's all new now, and there's so much to learn still. And like when I found that foundation guide, I was like, I'm going to read this whole thing. I really want to learn how this works. And having the background, even from working with other reptiles like ball pythons, you definitely have an easier time understanding it. I can only imagine just someone coming in new and not even having a background working in different genes, how overwhelming it could be, Phantom is, sorry, go ahead.
It definitely helps. And that's something I would say, if you're beginning and you really want to get involved, I've read a few of the over and over again, and I always grasp something new, and I use it as a tool when I'm looking in my collection, and I'll go back just to make sure what they're saying and look, and then I'll compare notes. But if you're getting into it, that's definitely something save on your computer.
Yeah, 100%. What have you found, Quincy, has been a huge help for you? Pretty much the same, or
Yeah, the genetic guide. I mean, when that information came out, it confirmed, like I told you guys, it confirmed so many things for me that I was already seeing in my own collection and ideas that I already had. And I'm still, as soon as today, going over the information there, there's so much. I always find something new, even not just the articles, but the videos too.
yeah.
There's so
Well,
much
even look at the
information and
videos. Even look at the videos that just came out with Pangea about Pixel, right? Like
right.
that right there has been a huge help. And just seeing like the little shorts where they can, like, it's great to read the article, but I do find that like the videos really help because you can see and they can show you examples in close up. And definitely, I think we're moving forward with in a good way. As you know, and seeing how the other thing too I find interesting is seeing how different things interact with each other. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, right? Is not just the basic foundation of what Phantom is. I mean, if you want that, you could go in the foundation guide and read and learn that it's recessive and, you know, how it interacts with pattern and so on. But I think the cool thing is to find out how it interacts with other things. And that's something you'll see like with ball pythons where you'll have combos. And we've seen it and we're starting to use combo names for things like cappuccino and lily white, where you're calling it a frappuccino. Like we're just not there yet with some of the other combo names. Like you're just really calling out the different genes and what they are and trying to even figure out what they are in the first place and kind of pinpoint it. We're still in a tricky spot, right? So that's the point of this live, and hopefully further ones down the road where we'll cover different things. But today we're focusing on Phantom. So I guess I'll bring up the first picture. And they laughed at me earlier because I said we'll start with basic Phantom. And what did you tell me, Quincy?
It's not basic.
Not basic Phantom.
Not basic. Very hard to make.
So how hard is it to make? Like, you know, you see this and you're seeing it as like it is a solid color, but like in reality, how hard is it to have like a solid Phantom?
Yeah, the clean color, dark hue to that. It's nearly black. That gecko's awesome, Mark.
Yeah. And this is Mark's gecko, right? And you were,
Yeah,
is this
yeah.
one you were, so what is this gecko, Mark?
This is a cap. This is a
Very
cappuccino.
clean.
Yeah. Very nice.
And here's where it makes it difficult, I find, for like IDing. Like for me, and we can deep dive in this another time when we're talking about caps and stuff, but you'll have certain things that you're looking for in a cap. Oh, and now you see my camera went off. And this might happen tonight, guys, because I'm having camera issues. So I just got to set it again. Hold on. And then I got to switch my camera. Sorry, everybody. I'm such a professional. There we go. Like I wouldn't even know where to start to identify things like this, because like with cappuccinos, like you usually see like tells and stuff. So what would be something that you would see in a Phantom to kind of know that it's a cap and not just a non-cap gecko? Is there certain things that you can look for, or
When what I see, it doesn't work all the time, but what I see is when they first hatch, you get that bright white at the end of the dorsal tip of the tail,
Okay.
and you get like a lot of lines going through the white further down the tail as it gets dark. I
Okay.
I noticed that. There's
Okay.
probably other things, but from my research and understanding, and that's what's proven for me.
Okay. Awesome. And then we'll pop into our next one. And I think this is another one of your phantoms, right? So this one we're kind of getting into a little bit of dowel spots, which we'll talk about later. But this one again would be, I'm just trying to see here, like basically like a patternless with just spots, or what are we looking at here?
This one comes, yeah, it's a patternless with just spots. It actually didn't get too much. This comes from a group that I'm doing. You can kind of see the jaw has a little bit of that yellow. But this comes from like a highlighter yellow white spot. But this one didn't get it too much. But it's basically a phantom Dalmatian.
So for those in the room that are ball python people, Quincy, do you want to explain to non-gecko breeders what phantom is?
Yes. So phantom's recessive. It's a gene that basically mutes the top color pattern on the gecko. So that's going to be the color pattern that you see in flame, harlequin, orange pattern or white pattern. It's basically going to mute that. And it's going to give you, like you're seeing right there, a nearly solid color animal. There are advanced forms of phantom where the white pattern kind of overpowers phantom a little bit and starts showing through, kind of like what you're seeing there on the portholes. And probably if we had a top shot of that gecko, you'd see it at the base of the tail, a little bit of white coming in.
Okay.
But basically, yeah, phantom just mutes the top color pattern.
It almost acts like a blanket effect, right? Like almost like you're
Right.
putting like a blanket over everything on that gecko.
Right. And it adds melanin as well.
Adds melanin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we'll see in later examples as well when we start getting into like geckos that have more of a pattern, like how it's impacting things like pinstripe or white wall, or even like how the portholes will kind of come through, because they all kind of interact differently with phantom, right? Some things are a lot more strong and can overpower it and kind of peek through. And you'll see that in like lily white and with portholes, but like other things like pinstripe, and it'll kind of almost have like I'm saying, like a sheer blanket effect over it, like a curtain.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the pinstripe would be more dominant.
So we have another one here. So this one, Mark, this is yours, eh?
Oh, yeah, that one's mine. That's just the most basic phantom.
Yeah.
There goes your basic phantom.
There's a basic.
Yeah.
So basic.
Yeah. It's a good one for me. It's like a blank canvas. I have a group that produces a lot of these. I have a lot of holdbacks that are just blank phantoms like this. But
And I would say I almost want to compare this to like the closest to a blank canvas that we have, similar to like a normal ball python, but it's not, because there's still a genetic there. And then if you're putting this to something that doesn't have phantom in it, you're still producing 100% het phantoms. So you kind of have to be careful what you're pairing it with. So if you're wanting to like isolate certain traits and so on, you could put to a phantom, but you would want to make sure that that gecko also doesn't have het phantom in it, right? Because then you're kind of, it's counterintuitive in that space. Do you find it useful for things like that within your projects to try to isolate things, or like what would you use a like more of a basic phantom for, and which projects?
I would use them. Well, what I'm using them for is so that I could work on other projects. Adding the harlequin, the harlequin with the phantom, producing those, using them to clean up Dalmatians, using them for, well, hypo projects, depending on what I'm working with there. And I just like phantoms, period. So I'm trying to make them consistently black, black, as many as many as possible. So
well, and you're seeing there's been a bit of a hype with them, right? Like lately with They're all,
Yeah,
everyone's trying to make an all black gecko. That's not an xanthic, right? Like the
yeah,
charcoal
yeah.
is a really dark gecko. And that one super black gecko that we saw circling around, like try to get it as dark as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are doing a really great job with that project and are producing some really cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so this one here, you kind of see some Tangerine coming through, right?
Mm-hmm. And this is a sibling of the one that you just showed. This is actually a sibling of that one.
Okay.
And that just shows you the range in color also with the Phantom. I get some darker ones, and then you get some more olivey or reddish ones, but clean base. You can see on the side, some of them do have like this very light white portholing coming through.
Yeah.
Some of them stronger than others. So
But it's a nice example of just showing like that minimal, what it, like just a little bit of pattern can do and kind of change that effect, right?
mm-hmm.
And then
That's a
this
cap.
one here, that's a cap.
That's
Does
a
it have
cap.
a little white dot on its back there?
It does. It does.
That's neat.
That's the only white dot on the entire gecko.
It was dominant. It was like really popping through.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see this gecko right from this picture. You can see the 3 different shades, but this gecko turns completely black. But right
Okay.
now you can see the very light, and to the right of that a little bit darker, and then in between up top going towards the dorsal, you see how dark it's getting.
Yeah.
But that's clean.
Very clean.
This is another.
And it's really, I personally, I love a clean Phantom like that, where there's like no, like it's just so, it looks so smooth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that is an important, like I know some people are working on Dalmatian projects as well, and we'll see the Dals later, but having a clean Phantom like that in like a Dalmatian project where you're not having that brindle or the Tangerine behind the spots really gives that canvas, right, for those Dal spots to really pop.
Mm-hmm. And one thing is it takes time to do that also, like
Mm-hmm.
especially for anybody. Just because you see this and it may have a little bit of tiger, like that's working towards a goal. So as you keep on pairing them, you can get lighter, less pattern. It's not something that happens right away.
Well, you're breeding the traits out, right? You're
Yeah.
breeding that aspect out of it and hoping to produce something that's not going to have that trait. So like if you're trying to get something cleaner, you're trying to take the tiger out, or whatever else you're working that's working against you to try to get to that ultimate goal of that clean,
Yeah.
patternless, really, Phantom.
Yeah.
And
I don't.
that takes time, like you're saying, that could take generations and of holdbacks. And then sometimes you'll hold something back, and like I've been through it where I've hold something back and I think it's a Phantom, but it has like Tangerine. I'm like, oh, it's a cute little tiger, and it hits 10 grams, and all of a sudden it has pattern that comes up on the side that it didn't have before, or and I'm like, it's not what I wanted, or it's not exactly what I was looking for. And that's the thing, it evolves over time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the fun.
Especially with people who don't want Dal spots, and there's like one that pops up at like 20 grams. You're like, no. So this is one of my guys. So this guy would be an olive. He's kind of at a weird like fire down there, but he fires up almost black. And he basically doesn't really have much going on except for a couple spots on his tail. So he'll be part of my like Phantom projects. But you'll definitely get you'll get Phantoms in all the bases, right? You'll get Phantom yellows, Phantom olives, Phantom reds. I don't know if you've seen a lot, but I haven't seen many lavender phantoms.
Mm.
Yeah, you don't see that. That's something that I'm working on.
Yeah.
You don't really see that at all,
I kind of like envision a purple gecko.
right?
And I have seen like hypo and xanthic where it's made almost that purple hue, and I feel
Yeah.
like you can get some really nice lavenders where the purple is just like really strong, or it's more of a blue hue, and I'm like, I want to see that with no pattern, just a completely solid animal. And I have not been able to really. If someone has something like that, send it to me on Instagram because I'd love to see it. But that would be really cool. And then we got this one here. So, and we were talking about this earlier. So this is one that I had picked up that was out of a charcoal and a monochrome pairing. And I'm not familiar with monochrome. I know there hasn't been a lot of information out there. I would love to learn more about it. But it's one of those new things, right? That still hasn't, I guess, had a lot of information published with how it interacts with other stuff. And
Yeah,
uh,
I haven't heard too much about monochrome. I've heard a little bit, but not too much. And then at one stage it was talked about a lot, and I guess it went quiet for a little while. I don't see too many people talking about it.
yeah, I think it's a bit of a tricky one too, because and it's hard to say because there's not a lot out there where, they're talking about, oh, it's more of a silver, or here we got a comment here about monochrome. Let's see. There'll be more information about monochrome soon. Oh, that's exciting. I would love to learn more. um yeah, I'm excited to see that because, and it's like everything, like even with the pixel stuff, right? Like we're still learning and there's still information that's going to come up about it. But yeah, so this is like, she has a little bit of the tigering in her, and but very, very like simple. She's got one Dalmatian spot, and I don't know if you can see it. It's right at the top of her neck.
Mm.
Right at the top. Just a tiny little one.
That little
Yeah,
Just a
I
little
see
dot.
it.
And so what's we have here? This is one of yours, Quincy?
Yep, this is a dark phantom. Just trying to work towards the black goal with this one. But like Mark was talking about, it takes generations of stacking that color and the phantom to get a really nice, clean, but also really dark phantom.
Yeah, and this one you have a little bit of it. Is it like a quad, I guess, on the side that's coming through, or
That's white out coming through, and it's
white
showing
out?
like a little line there. Yeah,
Okay. See, I'm still learning.
it's very muted. I mean, you just see, I think on the other side of the gecko, you can see a little better, but
Yeah, it's funny how that happens, eh? How they're both different on each side. There's always a
yeah,
nicer side to a gecko than the other. When you take
yep.
pictures, you always want to get the nicer side. It doesn't always happen because they don't always want to cooperate. And now
Oh,
we're getting some portholes and stuff coming through, eh?
yeah, this is a gecko I recently picked up. Um, Basically because of the yellow in it. When I saw that yellow and I saw that jawline, I wanted to work with that with my phantoms and see if I can continue to produce. I know that last Dalmatian one, that's what I'm talking about with the yellow portholing coming up the sides.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna incorporate him into that group to try to get black Dalmatian phantoms with the yellow portholing and that yellow lip to continue moving forward. I like it. I'm just having fun.
So I haven't heard like a whole lot on the yellow stuff. You see it a lot with like Lily, and I know like Brian from Altitude, he refers to it as like highlighter.
Highlighter gene,
Uh,
yeah. That's
highlighter
where I get
gene.
it from. That I've heard him speak about it, and I've been watching it, so that's why I want to play with it to see what it's doing.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I know he said he's kind of undecided on whether or not it's like a form of tangerine or how it's kind of interacting. I think there's kind of some differences of opinions on that, and that's going to be like everything, right? That's new that comes out, that when you're trying to work at isolating a specific thing and figuring out how it works. I know myself, I have some stuff that's popped in here that has that, some secret projects that I'm not going to talk about on here, but also with some like lily white stuff. Definitely see it a lot in lily white. How about you, Quincy? Like, are you working with that as well in your projects, or?
I do see it pop up, but I really haven't even started focusing on highlighter yet. I'm really
No,
interested. I want to see what Mark makes this coming season with it.
yeah.
But yeah, I see it popping up specifically in lily whites.
It's really cool on a dark base gecko because the
Yeah.
yellow really pops.
Brian had some exanthic lily whites for sale this Black Friday. My wife would have kicked me out, but I
Yeah,
was
I was gonna
dying
say,
to
did
buy
you
one.
scoop one?
I was dying to buy this one. I kept looking at it, and my wife was like, "Don't even think about it." But it was an exanthic lily white with complete highlighter from crest down to the tail. The whole
Wow.
lats were highlighter. It looked beautiful against the black.
And it inspired you that you're like, I want to make that.
It got me excited because it was the same train of thought that I had to see him doing it. It's like, A, you have a good idea, do
Yeah.
it, you know? I maybe
Yeah, that's
shouldn't have said
awesome.
anything. I maybe should have kept quiet myself.
Well, I mean, you get to a point where, you have enough in your collection, you've been working with it enough that like you can only stay silent for so long, because there's two pieces. One, you're wanting to sell it and people are going to ask you questions about it and be like,
Yeah.
what is this? And you kind of have to have an answer if you're going to start selling them. And then the other side of it is you've been working on it for so long that you're really excited to talk about it.
That's true.
Right?
Yep. For
Like
sure.
sometimes it's really hard to kind of like hold some of that information in. You're like, okay, I gotta stay quiet before I start sharing this with everybody, because I really want to make sure, it's what it like, it's working. And then you want to share that. You get so excited. You want to share it with everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be really cool. I'm excited to see what you're going to put with it. We'll see the progression. And this is one of yours, Quincy?
Yep. So this is a really dark phantom pin empty back from Kristen at Cresty Works. She has a
Awesome.
whole project going on with phantom empty back, but it's really cool. Empty back, you can see a dark shadow going down the dorsal of that gecko. And even though
Yeah.
the whole pattern is muted on this gecko, you could still see that shadow going all the way down the back, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. So what would you pinpoint in this one? Like, what traits could you pinpoint so people who are watching can see what you're seeing, so they can kind of identify it as well?
Right. So we got phantom. It's going to be the main one. It's adding melanin and it's wiping off any color pattern that would have been there on a non-phantom. See the pin down the sides of the dorsal, and you see it cutting down the side on the mid-lateral line as well. And then the empty back is creating that dark shadow down the middle of the dorsal from head to tail. It's almost fully erased. Yeah.
And then on the sides, is that kind of like more of a quad, or is there like any pattern coming up on the side? I'm just trying to see there. Quad.
Mm-hmm.
I would like, I'm trying to think if I've seen a super stripe with phantom. Like, I would imagine it would have a thicker pinning on each side, right?
Something like that. No?
It would look very similar to this.
It would look like this, and it, because I was gonna say, I was wondering if there was super stripe in this.
Well, I think super stripe is kind of still up for debate on whether it is the same as empty back or it is different. I think it's still up in the air.
Conversation for another day.
Yeah,
That's
I
another
don't.
episode.
Yeah,
That's
I
That's
don't
another.
work
another
closely with
episode.
Super Stripe. Yeah.
Crusty Millions is saying sharing is caring as well. Oh, and there goes my camera.
I think
um,
another note to notate that I caught on, just to put it out there. There's two types of melanin. You have brown melanin and you have black melanin. So when you're working with your phantoms, I saw this on the genetics videos. But I'm still trying to work with it to see the differences and things like that with the brown melanin and the black melanin in the phantoms. So that's just something to look out for. Just heads up. Sharing is
okay.
caring.
Yeah, this
Sharing is
one
caring.
on the screen is definitely the brown. It's like a
Yeah.
very chocolatey brown. Yeah.
Yeah. And we got Gecko Coves in the house today. Hi, Bobby.
What's
Bobby.
up, Bobby?
And now we go into some porthole stuff. So we switch over. So this is one of yours, eh, Mark? I think they're both the same.
Yes, this is one.
Okay.
Again with that highlighter yellow. That's what drew me to it. White port on the highlighter yellow portholes coming up the sides. And that's what this is all part of that same project with the highlighter yellows.
Gotcha.
And then going into the clean. This is very clean, no spots. And using it also for the spots. But yeah.
That's awesome. And you can definitely see, like, once the portholes start coming in, like, that overpowers basically Phantom, right? Like, and I guess the more that you work with that project, the bigger you can get portholes and the more it kind of expands.
Yeah, it's overpowering the Phantom. That's why you're seeing it. And I working with it more and more, I'm assuming it will start to get bigger and spread more.
Yeah, so the white pattern is overpowering the phantom, right? So that's why you see the portholes coming on the sides and even going up towards the dorsal. And I think if you stacked this further another generation with more white pattern, you'd see white coming up on the base of the tail, up the back, because Little Monsters defined that Phantom loses dominance towards going down towards the base of the tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll see some white creeping up from the tail.
And you see that, and we'll see it later on with Lily Whites, but that's very noticeable when you're putting in Lily White and Phantom, right? Because you'll lose that pattern, but then when you get closer to that tail, that's where it's really kind of starting to fight its way back in.
Yeah.
And here we see like more of a porthole coming up.
Yeah, this is
basically what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is a better example of that white spot taking over, taking control.
Yeah.
And that one little spot.
I was going to say it has that one little dot on the head. And again, so now we're getting more dowel spots, but again, the porthole is still kind of peeking through on the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really doesn't matter what base you're working with. Like it's going to pop. Like I haven't really noticed any differences whether you're working with yellow or red, or like it pretty much works the same way.
All three of these geckos are red. So
okay.
Yeah, even that first one, it may have looked very this fires up red.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then we got some red dowel spots.
Oh yes.
So you're working on a project with red dowels on Phantom, right?
Yes. Yes.
And trying to figure... Sorry, go ahead.
Clean bases, hypo involved in it, and as big a red spot like that one right there. That's that gecko. That one red spot is that big, but I'm trying to figure out how to get them big all over the gecko, but red, the way we see them in the black Dalmatians.
Look who we have. We have showing love in the comments while we're getting right into portholes and white spots and all that. Game as geckos in the house. Who has some really cool geckos over with their lotto line, eh?
Oh yeah, very
Yep.
nice.
Yep.
Cassandra has a question. Could a bicolor still be phantom?
A bicolor is a phantom.
It just
Yep.
it just shows a different almost shade right on the dorsal.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But unless you're getting an actual pattern, like a flame or something where you're seeing a pattern, then because a flame would be not phantom, because now you're having a pattern down the dorsal.
Right.
How would flame interact? Like if you're putting phantom over it, it would just mute that pattern on the dorsal at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The stronger the phantom is, the less pattern you would see. The weaker the phantom is, the more pattern you're gonna see.
Yeah. Do you think we will be able to add color to the white areas, especially in lily whites? That's an exciting one with Tangerine. And also with the highlighter gene, right?
Yep.
So there are some things in play that are allowing you to do that, which are pretty exciting. And we'll maybe show that off in a different genetic episode when we start talking about Tangerine. So you will see some later on with some of the phantom lilies, though, because some of them do have Tangerine in them, and it kind of shows a different color. So this again is another Dalmatian with portholes, and Dalmatian overpowers the phantom. So you'll have the Dalmatian, whether it's red spot or black spot, it basically is almost like it sits on top of that phantom, right? Would it be fair to say that, or that it's peeking through?
No.
Both kind of the
Sits on
same.
top. Yeah.
Sits on top.
And this is one of yours, eh, Quincy?
Yep. A lot of white pattern coming through on this one. This is a red phantom as well. He has down spots, but he's got a lot of white pattern coming in. I love the way it looks, just like snowflakes on the sides and even on the legs.
Yeah. That's such a cool looking gecko. It'd be neat to see those white spots like all over.
Yeah, like on the face, right?
Yeah, like an opposite Dalmatian where it's just white spots everywhere. That would be wild.
Yeah.
And then we're back to, this is a red with tiny little portholes again. Very clean as well.
You can see some of that tigering in there.
Yeah.
And now we got some dowel spots. So these ones are, this is part of your dowel project, Mark?
Yes, this is one of my females. She's very clean for yellow. Not too many tigering going through. You see a little bit of that margin there, Quincy, on that.
Yeah.
But she's a very clean phantom. Produces a lot of spots on basically every gecko that comes out.
That's awesome. And they definitely, they're like more of that ink spot. So you're getting a larger spot.
Yeah.
And it on such a clean base, it really shines through, right? Like they really pop and they don't kind of get blended with other stuff that's going on in the background.
For sure.
And here's another example here. This one has a bit of tigering in it.
This one has a bit of tigering in it. Not as clean as the last. Well, this one is actually one of her children.
Okay. Very consistent, eh, with the spots?
Oh, yeah. Very.
And this one I'm just absolutely in love with.
Me too. Me too.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, this is my pride and joy. This is what I'm trying to. This one is helping me get to larger and larger red spots. Hopefully.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How are
Very
you
clean.
finding like when you're trying to reproduce those red spots on other animals? Are you finding it challenging, or you're
Um,
working on documenting everything, I'm guessing?
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm nowhere close to where I would want to be, but I'm seeing a lot of different shades of red spots. I'm not seeing it hard per se to get the red spots. I'm seeing it hard to get them big, if
Gotcha.
that makes sense. Um, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. How are we getting them big ink spots consistently and bright red like this? Because
Yeah.
I see shades of orange to brownish red. I see little specks.
Freckles, specks, yeah.
Yeah. But clean base like this, big, huge red spots, that's what the goal is.
Yeah, and to kind of figure out how to isolate those red spots and be able to duplicate the patches on,
Exa-
and then hopefully eventually on other base colors if you can, if it's even possible, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm working with it with phantom lily whites. I'm working with it with yellow. I'm working with it with numerous different reds, down to reds that don't even have spots on it, just to see what's going on with it. Um, yeah, so stay tuned for that.
That's awesome. And then now we're getting into something a little different where you're having more of that orange hue, right?
This is that tangerine. Um, can't really appreciate the color in the picture, but in person you'll see the difference. But yeah, this
Are
is
you
another one of
find
my favorites.
Are you finding like the tangerine, like it kind of does a dusting on it on Phantom where it's almost like it gives almost like Cheeto dust, it kind of covers everything. Do you
Yeah.
find that it impacts the Dalmatian spots at all? Or these Dalmatian spots again just really sit on top and
I don't think, me personally, I don't think it impacts the Dalmatian spots because the all the babies that I got from this have way more spots than him,
okay.
and they're all pretty much orange like him. Um, but what do you think, Quincy? Have you seen?
I mean, that's not your average tangerine. That's a hyper tangerine. It's just the
Yeah,
photos, not as good lighting wise, but that thing glows in person.
Yeah.
Um, the color is phenomenal, but I think the black spots sit on top. I do have questions about the oil spots that we see in them because it does look like it's behind if you look at them closely. I don't know if it's necessarily a green spot or if it's being masked and making it
Yeah.
look green, if you know what I mean.
hmm
So that's another one. It's kind of weird.
Um have you had any of the tangerine stuff and hyper tangerine have orange spots?
Mm,
Mm.
no, I think most of mine have black spots and some oil spots.
Yeah, some of the tangerine lily white stuff that I've been working with, they don't have any spots at all, but they've started getting some orange spots. And mainly
Mm.
around like the face and different like different areas, but I've noticed like they're like orange freckles, bright orange, and they're so cool. I just didn't know if you guys had seen any of that stuff with the tangerine stuff that you're working with.
Is it is it circular or is it like a patch?
It's a patch. It's like a Dalmatian spot, but it's bright orange.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
cool.
It's really cool because it literally looks like a little Dalmatian spot or like almost even sometimes a little oil spot, but it's like orange. It completely contrasts on the color that it's on. So it's kind of neat.
Mm.
So now we're getting to some orange stuff. So Quincy, this is one of yours.
Yep, that's a hypo red actually. She's just very, very vibrant. Super clean. Probably use this in a cappuccino project for this
Awesome.
coming season. And you can't see her eyes that well, but she has blue eyes, which I love.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Like they just really pop because you usually see that more on like lilies, right?
Yeah, it's like a silvery blue color.
Yeah. Is she a soft scale?
She is.
Okay. Is soft scales would have it's funny. She asked the same question.
She's soft, yeah.
Yeah, because you get the gray eyes in the soft scale as well, right?
Yeah, and some of the super softs get really dark eyes, really dark gray.
Okay. Gecko Cope saying, do tangerines get better with age or fade out? I think it really depends, right, on how much tangerine is in there.
Yeah, there's definitely grades to it. The hyper tangerines, like the one that previous to this, I've noticed the color is pretty consistent from baby to full-grown adult. Color is pretty consistent. But with the regular tangerines, yeah, I think there's definitely grades to it.
Yeah, and I do find like sometimes you'll see it kind of fade out if you're using it like on a lily. Depending on like, I mean, there's some new stuff that's kind of come up where it's been a lot more consistent with the orange and kind of holding it. But yeah, it really, I think it really depends on how much it's stacked and what you're working with. It's still fairly new.
That's
stacking
a key
is so
point.
important. Yeah,
That's a
stacking.
key point.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think that, oh, let me get the tangerine and it's gonna be the best tangerine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'll just throw tangerine and get something bright orange, but that's not how it works.
Yeah, you have to stack that tangerine and make it as dominant as possible.
Yeah. And it's similar to the hypo, right? Like the more you stack, the cleaner and the more vibrant it's going to appear on the animals.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that in the different degrees of the pink base color. The nicer ones are heavily stacked hypo with red base, and they're getting that really nice baby pink. But like one generation hypo with red base isn't going to give you that baby pink color. It's going to give you a red with less melanin, not necessarily pink.
Yeah. And then you add some tangerine to that, and then you're getting almost like a coral color, where it's like more of like an orangey pink, and
yeah,
there's a lot to play with. So here's a good example with some pretty nice tangerine on it. So tell me about this one.
This is also a hyper tangerine. This is just a picture in bright light. You can see the full color. But yeah, that color is pretty consistent from baby to adult. It's so vibrant. For me, I'm going to be working with this and cappuccino, because with cappuccino we see that neon orange color that's really unique to cappuccino. And I'm just imagining what that could do with this.
Awesome. Welcome to the chat, Cold-Blooded Gems. And this is another one of yours here. So now you're getting hypo in it, right?
Yep. It's a nice strawberry blonde phantom. Trying to breed out the spots on these. But yeah, the color is really nice. The fringing is nearly orange. But
There's a bit of pattern on the side of this one too.
Yeah, that's tiger interacting with pinstripe.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. And they tend to get with the tiger too. You'll get the little line, beside the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. And now we're getting some pattern that's really starting to kind of come up under the phantom, right? So you're getting pinstripe in this one.
Pinstripe, harlequin, tiger. Yep. This is a not so clean hyper tangerine, but we're working on that with her.
So how could you explain for someone trying to identify things like, how do you see the harlequin under phantom?
The harlequin, you can see it on the mid-lateral line. It's not that easy to see in this photo, but you can see kind of pattern coming in on the side of the gecko.
Yeah.
That's from Harlequin interacting with the Phantom and the Pin and the Tiger.
Awesome. Kevin, thanks for joining in. He's been pimping me out for 15 minutes of lame, supporting me. I love it. And this is one of mine. So you guys were saying this one was like a strawberry, basically, which is basically what I've had it labeled as well. Now this one's an empty back and has made so many really cool empty backs in my projects, and has also been the female I've been using for all my empty back lily white stuff. Definitely had like her range of glow, like she will, in her entire being will glow like neon yellow when she's fired up. It's wild.
She's really cool.
And then she fires down and you can kind of see like some of the little underlying pattern and stuff in her. But the stuff that she's popped out, like the variety of hatchlings that I've got from her has been pretty wild, and you can really start pinpointing the different things. Like she was almost one of the first geckos I got. Like she was from the first group that I got, and I had no idea what I had, right? And then you're starting to kind of learn more and work with it, and I'm like, okay, this is really cool. And there's a lot of really neat things that kind of start popping up from it.
Yeah,
a big combo, right?
Yeah. And this is one of her hatchlings. So this is her being paired with a red phantom lily white 66% head exanthic. So this one came out. So this would be an empty back. So now you're starting to see pattern because it's fired down. You can really see it more pop through. So this would be an empty back. You can see the pinstripe. So what would you say would be on the side there? Because I'm not 100%. It's still small. So I'm not sure if that's like more of just a quad or like, because there's really yellow pattern that comes up from the stomach up to the side, right?
Are either of the parents a white wall or a harlequin or something along those lines?
Well, the mom is the yellow that you saw before.
The Phantom. Mm-hmm.
So this is the mom.
Yeah. No.
and the dad is a red lily white Phantom.
Okay, so yeah, it must be coming from him, right?
It must be.
On this picture, you can see on the pins towards the end, like what we were talking about earlier, the white kind of fighting, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Megan's saying, Megan here, I'm having a hard time with empty back. I don't see empty back in that gecko because me empty back means that there's nothing in the back. Yeah, so this is one copy of the gene. So this wouldn't be like the two copies where you're having empty back completely out. The tail is cut off, so you won't like this one actually has the double dash and then the double dash further down on the tail. So it does have the empty back markers. And this female has consistently produced like full empty back when paired in the right combo. So I know she is empty back for sure. And she was a surprise. I had no idea she was. She actually has the dashes on her tail as well. And then when you start looking for those things, I noticed it, right? But yeah, she would have one copy of the gene, and you can kind of see in the bottom on the side, but I have a better picture on Instagram. But this one here, it's more that half of the base that really is cleared up, but it has such strong pattern through the dorsal. And then you're seeing at the top of the neck where it kind of connects, which is the other thing.
Yeah.
That's another marker, that little V.
This one's very visibly empty back to me. You can see down the dorsal all the way at the nape of the neck. You can see sections where
I'm sorry.
Erased. Yeah.
What I think, who was it? Chris? Megan is trying to say, because that's a lot of confusion with that also, is when you say empty back, they're expecting to see a completely wiped out back.
Yeah, so and I think it's the language. So some people call it head empty back and empty back. I'm of the opinion where I call it empty back and super empty back. And the reason I do that is because I come from a ball python mentality where if I'm calling something a head, it's recessive. So I kind of feel wrong calling it head empty back at empty back, because to me it doesn't sound right because it's not a recessive, right?
Yeah, that's where I think they
Yeah,
get
it gets
the
confusing.
confusion.
So empty
Yeah.
back, one copy of the gene, or AKA head empty back.
Yeah.
Yeah, this does not have the two copies, so it's not going to have that full clean dorsal that you would see. And then we're
And
getting
stay tuned for the empty back episode where you can see those lines, those dashes on the tail, and we'll talk about all the markers.
Yeah, Kristen says, I didn't know the dashes meant empty back. I don't think they always do, but it's definitely like, and I've had empty backs that don't have the dashes either, but they definitely help you kind of figure it out. They don't work on lilies, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
You're kind of SOL when you're doing empty back or head empty back lilies. I got to get my camera back on. Sorry, guys.
I believe they used it as a marker, but it's not a definitive marker.
Yeah.
Also you may instead of getting those dashes, or you may see them faintly, but you may have a complete erase of the tail down the middle as well.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
in that situation, you may not see those tail markers from what I understand. And I see it also in some of the animals I have.
Yeah. So this is one of yours, Mark, right? And now
This
we're
is
seeing. Sorry,
this
go
is one
ahead.
of mine. This is a crazy one. This has all types of, this is one of those situations where I did not know. I could not tell. I had to breed it out to prove it out.
Gotcha. So
That's
talk to me about what's in this one here.
this one has the highlighter stuff going on. This one I want to say is hypo, I think. Did she just get kicked out?
All right, it's
What
just you and
happened?
me.
It's just me and you. So this is the one we were talking about, Quincy. It has a lot of stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
I know now it's definitely a phantom because the female that I paired him to in the past never produced me phantoms, and I paired him this past season, and I'm getting phantoms.
Okay.
So not all of them are phantoms, but I'm getting phantoms.
Mhm.
So, which is beautiful because a lot of them are coming out empty back, and then I'm getting phantoms in between. Hey, welcome back.
You carried it. You did well.
um so yeah, it's a beautiful color in person. Um this was just a project for me to see if it was phantom or not. I wanted to see if it was phantom or not, to be honest with you. That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to do with it.
Well, because some are hard to tell.
Some are very hard to tell, and that's one thing I picked up from watching those videos also. Hey, when in doubt, because I showed this gecko to a couple of people, and you get different it and that happens with a lot of these in this genetic area. Different people will see different things and will tell you different. And
Yeah.
it's not that somebody is wrong or somebody is right. It's sometimes it's hard to see with these animals, and that's the whole part of doing it. So breed it out,
Yeah.
prove it out.
When in
And
doubt, prove it out.
exactly. Exactly.
Cold Blooded said, wouldn't it just be phantom?
This one?
Are you talking about this one? Because there's a lot more going on right underneath it. So it wouldn't just be phantom. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I may have missed a part of that question or what it was for. And
This one, yeah, that one's definitely a big combo,
I,
right, Mark?
Yeah. Monochrome information is coming out soon. It was said earlier in the podcast. Stay tuned for that.
Yeah, wish we had the answer for you now.
So this one, I want to say it has pinstriping and quad striping. It has both lateral lines on the side. It's Phantom. It has, if you want to call it highlighter gene, it has that as well. It gets very it's bright, that highlighter yellow. What else are we seeing with it?
Harlequin.
Harlequin. It might be Dalmatian. It has that one little black speckle. I don't know if it's a Dal or not, but it's very minuscule. If you see it on the dorsal area towards the neck. I mean,
How would you
that's
call a dowel spot between a freckle though? Because there's differences, right?
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that I look and I see that, I personally see that little black dot. And that's a question that I have. But if you go further down the dorsal towards the end on the left hand side by the pins, you'll see like another little black dot.
Okay.
But it also looks like it's just a break in the pattern in the pattern there. So I don't know. But
Gotcha. I guess it's one of those things once you start working in projects, you'll see if there's more spots that pop up or,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
I think this one's
didn't
really
take
cool.
that into
I love pattern under Phantom. I think it's so neat, especially when they fire down and you can it really pops. And now we're getting into Phantom Lily Whites.
Oh, your favorites.
Whose favorites? My favorites?
Well,
Well,
both of you
Quincy's-
work with the Phantom Lily Whites, right?
Yeah.
Cresty Millions is saying freckle, singular, dal, multiple. There you go. Is that what that is? I feel like one dot could still be a dal spot, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can go with that theory if you like. That makes you feel better. I find them endearing. I'm not bothered by dowel spots. I know some people don't like to have the dowel spots on their animals, and I guess like with you're working with like projects where you're wanting it to have it really clean. But I feel like even when you're going to like expos and stuff, like anything that has a dowel spot seems to be a fan favorite for the you know, the kids and the people that are coming to look for their new pet. They're like, oh, it has a spot.
Yeah, that's something I definitely see also at the shows. People like that patterned animal with dowel spots on it. You know?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And Cassandra's saying that Phantom Lilies are her favorite as well. I like Phantom Lilies. And you're working, Mark, you're working with Phantom Lilies with dowels as well now too, eh? Because we started seeing some people starting to work with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is part of that same red spot program where I'm just trying to get those red spots as much as possible. I know they say Lily stops the spots from coming in. It overpowers the spots and things, but this one seems to have a lot of spots. You can't see them right now because it's fired up. Fired down, this gecko is very pink, and you can see those bright red spots all over.
Okay.
So that's part of that. It also has that highlighter yellow in the lily white.
Yeah. And I guess it depends on. So, like, what would be the factors on a Phantom Lily White, whether or not it has more white pattern or less white pattern? Like, what would impact the white pattern on a Phantom Lily?
The height of the sides, the amount of white on it.
Yeah, but like,
This
what
one's very
is
low
it?
expression.
Is it like a gene that, like, is there something in there that's making that Phantom Lily get more white versus one that would have less? Is it just a higher expression, or is there something else that's kind of at play that's making it kind of?
Isn't it like the white pattern is more dominant, or
Yeah,
the white pattern would be more dominant than the Phantom, I believe. Don't quote me, Anthony. from Little Monsters, if you hear this, comment. But from what I
when he
understand,
watches the replay later, he can put on all his comments and correct what we're saying.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it would be the white pattern being stacked over time, being more dominant than the phantom, so it's taking over.
Okay. You know, I've seen, so with the project this year, I've hatched out some phantom lilies, and it's with my empty back project, so, or head empty back. I did hatch out one that I believe to be a phantom lily head empty back, and I'm finding that, you know how the empty back have that lateral, right? It's pushing the white up and it's making it more of a thick bar on the side. So that I've been kind of finding pretty neat with the phantoms, because this is the first year I produced phantoms with empty back in it. For the lilies, anyways. So I don't know if you're noticing anything else that you're interacting with phantom lilies that is doing that, whether it's maybe snowflaking or, you know, other thing like portholes or stuff that kind of interacts and kind of adds to that spreading.
Well, the portholes help spread it up top as well, no?
Well, I would imagine, wouldn't it kind of stretch out the sides a bit?
Exactly. The portholes, I believe, would help it stretch up, going up the sides.
Yeah, that's the white pattern.
It's still, it's still white. WP.
WPOP. Yeah.
Charlie, I'm learning so much gecko genetics for my comeback. He's joking because he's in the 15 minutes of lame, so you know he'll switch to geckos after the contest and start doing geckos. Incorporate geckos with your ball pythons. And now we're having, this is another phantom lily, but that's where I'm saying where you're seeing the white is kind of coming up in like almost like little grooves up on the side. And you're seeing more of the white pattern at the base of the tail there. There's such a variety, right, of phantom lilies depending on what else is at play.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is one of yours, Mark?
Oh, that is one of mine. Yes. Yes. This is another phantom lily white, 100% head exanthic. On this one, I'd say you see the white pattern a little bit more dominant than the phantom. It's got you see the lily white on the lateral, but you see the yellow and you see the white pattern on top of the yellow. You see it? The difference?
Yeah.
On the pins, you see the white and like it's fighting through the dorsal. Even on the head, you can see some white there coming through.
I like seeing that on a phantom lily when it has a clear white pin all the way down on both sides.
Ugh, beautiful.
It just pops. I love it. And then we got another phantom lily here. And this is another one of yours, Mark?
This is another one. Yep. A beautiful, for me, this is a beautiful gecko. It's just going towards my black phantom lily whites. I'm just trying to get as black as possible.
So what would be causing that two-tone color where you're seeing dark? And is that like a brindling or?
Well, I believe, so I don't think you can take tiger out of any gecko from what I understand. I believe that's just the tiger markings showing through.
Okay.
And this is also 100% head exanthic. So I guess, you know, whatever this is not I didn't produce this gecko but I haven't seen the parent photos neither for me to be exact on what's happening here.
Yeah.
But from what I believe, it's the tigering that's causing that pattern to show through. What do you say, Quincy?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tiger, but I'm looking at the color, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about as far as the melanin goes.
Yeah,
You're seeing the brown there.
yeah. It's definitely not black. So it
Mhm.
is playing with the brown melanin, and that probably could be another episode for you, because there's a lot of stuff when I play with a lot of black geckos, and I'm based off that information that I got. That was a diamond that Tom and Anthony said. I'm seeing certain things when it comes to the difference in black geckos with the brown melanin,
Yeah.
with the black melanin playing with the phantom, with yellow and with red. So yeah, and even with you get orange in it as well. I have some black geckos that have orange in it. So yeah,
I mean, there's such a different shade, right? When you're saying like you're working with dark geckos, it's a spectrum of dark gecko
yeah,
colors.
yeah. It's just like red. It's just like reds, yellow. You know, it, there's from very gray light to chocolate brown, black. Like olives
Yeah.
are incorporated in there. Um, it's interesting. That's what I'm trying to work on. That's what I want to be able to give you the facts on that stuff. So that's what I'm working on. I have a lot of assumptions, but nothing
Mhm.
that I can say is 100 this is the law on it,
Yeah.
or any proof behind it. It's just a lot of hypothesis that I have, and I'm working with it.
Yeah. And we're going to get to a point at some point where we're going to have so much more data with everyone working in different projects. And that's the great thing about like doing that research and working on different projects and kind of working together as a community too, right? And sharing what we've learned and kind of comparing notes to come up with, you know, this is doing it with for my project and what's it working with in yours, and then kind of seeing, and there at the end of the day, that's how we find out how things work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure,
Because
for sure.
everyone is sitting in that same seat where they're like, when in doubt, prove it out, and trying to figure out how things work.
Yeah, and to make things easier and just to have fun all together as a community.
Yeah. So this one
This
here this is one of my phantom lilies, and I have no idea what's going on with this one. So this girl she's a little bit more fired down here, but she's goes vibrant, like bright orange. So she definitely has tangerine in her. And all her minor white that pops up from the lily, she's got a bit speckled on the base of the tail and then on the sides. It goes from yellow, and then you'll have some white, like clean white spots and patches on the side, and then that dark speckling on the top head and dorsal. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on with this gecko. She's actually going to be part of my pixel project. Like, I don't need to complicate it enough. But
I like that one.
well, there's a reason I bought her. I thought she's really cool. And when she fires up, the dark pattern on her dorsal like just goes super dark. Like it's just speckled dark everywhere, and it's crazy. Um but she has such a range from like a light peach color to like a vibrant orange, right? But I think she's one of the most exciting lily whites that I have right now to work with, to see what's going to come out of that project. But she's a female, so I have to pair her wisely.
She's so cool.
I have Chris is saying, on a total side note, would anyone be willing to share their data with lay and hatch dates with hatch weights? I'm trying to compare mine to other people and see what I'm noticing consistent. Well, we could put a comment here if anyone wants to reach out. And I don't have all that data. I find I use an incubator, so everything is very consistent with me on like they tend to hatch around the same time. And because I'm incubating at a specific temperature, they pretty much seem to be very consistent sizes. I don't know how you guys work with your incubation and stuff on your end.
I I have an incubator for this season to play around with temperatures as well. But I've always just left them room temp with the
Yeah.
fluctuation. Um, I have hatch dates. Do I have hatch weights? I do not have hatch weights. I do not weigh them at hatch, but I do have hatch dates, and I have lay dates as well.
Yeah, same for me. I don't weigh them at hatching, but I have lay dates, hatch dates, and same. I incubate at room temp.
Yeah. Kristen, I don't know. I don't know if this really has margin because it's kind of like all over the place, and we'll see some margin stuff later. Quincy, what do you think? Because you
I
work
mean
heavy
it.
with margin.
Yeah, I mean it definitely has the dark pigment on the dorsal on the head. With margin, we're seeing it more in a line formation, right? And this
Yeah.
one is really scattered and speckled everywhere, which to me is so interesting. And it looks like it even has the dark pigment on the face, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it has the speckling, the dark speckling that you would see like on the margin is
Mm,
all over the top of the gecko, from the
yeah.
nose right down to the base, right?
Well, that's similar to what I was showing you with that lily white phantom red spot, how it had the dark going all the way to the tip of the face.
Yeah.
This seems to be like broken up type of.
Yeah.
Looks like
Yeah, I
burns.
don't it looks like burns. I swear she's not burnt. She was born this way. I'm really excited to see how it's gonna kind of translate into like she's getting pretty close to breeding weight now, so I'm super excited to work with her. And there goes my camera again. You
And
know what? At a late night show like this, I almost want to make it a drinking game for everybody who drinks. Be like every time my camera goes out, take a shot.
and what's interesting that I see also in the picture is you see the white spots on the side, but then it
Yeah.
also has that highlighter yellow, which it seems to be two separate things, you know?
So the lily pattern on her has always been that yellow. The white patchy spots came like started appeared as she got bigger. They weren't there when she was smaller. So those
Mm,
are new.
white Dalmatians.
But they're so weird because they're like these white kind of faded spots. They're not solid. They're just kind of like these little patches everywhere.
Yeah, I see that in the photo. It's
And
interesting.
she has a bit too near the base of the tail as well. So it's really weird because it's not thick.
Wait, isn't so it's been growing as the gecko's growing is getting these patches.
Yep.
That's interesting to pay attention to. There was somebody I saw a video of them talking about something like that where right Quincy they had the patches appearing on a gecko. Did you see that on Instagram? They put a
Uh,
video out on it as if it could be something tied into pied or something like that.
yeah, I was just wondering if it was like a snowflake interaction on that, but I don't know how that would really interact with the phantom, right? So because they like that you tend to see kind of get more and spread more as the gecko ages and gets bigger, right? So it's something that I've kind of take note of.
Mm.
Um that they just kind of get bigger and bigger and more of them as she gets bigger, which is kind of neat.
You know, I would really expect to see white pattern more up on the sides of the gecko, like kind of filled in more on the sides. When
Yeah.
you're seeing white pattern on the dorsal, like you can see it towards the base of the tail, but you're really not seeing much on the side. So to me, that's very unique and weird.
She's a weirdo.
Hmm.
Her name is Cubert.
Oh.
I tried to name all my stuff that was in my like pixel that I was going to use in the pixel project after like video games and like arcade games. So this is Qbert.
So, so what are you using her for? Your pixel
I
project?
was going to work her. I was going to use her in the pixel project, but now I'm not so sure if that's what I want to do.
What would you use her for, Quincy?
I mean, I think I would try to breed her to something very plain phantom, like nearly patternless, and see what what variety you would get from that, just to see kind of what's at play with her. Because to me, it seems like a big combo going on, if not something completely different. But I mean,
I do
Pixel
have
would be
parent
cool too.
pictures. I do have parent
Oh,
pictures of this
Oh,
one, so I can send them to you offline. Um, the reason I was going to use this one in a pixel project is because there was some pixel stuff that popped out of the pairing that's sibling to this one.
okay, then
mm,
you're probably on the right track then.
Yeah, so that's kind of why I scooped this one up in the first place
Very
because I was
cool,
like,
very
oh,
cool.
that might be fun. But yeah, definitely like yeah, Cold Blooded is saying the Phantom is definitely suppressing the Lily gene in this one very much.
Yep.
yep.
And isn't Pixel a gene? Yeah, so it's come out that it's looking like it's recessive. That's how it's been showing up in my collection as well. Um, but we don't know if the one thing that hasn't really been proven is whether or not there's het markers for het pixels, right? And like I'm kind of seeing them myself. I know like there's kind of mixed opinions on that. Um but that's one thing to kind of keep in mind when you're working with something that's recessive.
The het markers.
That yeah, that there could be het markers. And that there's so much out there that could have pixel or be het pixel that you don't know, right? When you're starting to work with your projects, that when you kind of maybe see something that you're like, oh, that kind of looks interesting. You kind of want to work it in that project to see because when in doubt, prove it out.
Yep.
Are you looking for tail markers? Have you noticed anything?
I haven't
Uh,
noticed any tail markers.
I've just noticed the pattern
Yeah.
seems to be a little bit more chewed around the
Mm-hmm.
edges.
Mm-hmm.
And as the gecko develops, tends to have more of a chaotic, more of a scattered kind of feel to the edges of the pattern. That's kind of what I've been tracking.
I can tell you that my hets all have a very like irregular tiger pattern.
Mhm.
That's really
On
what
the
I've noticed.
dorsal. That
Yeah, on
was
the
the other
dorsal.
thing too. On the dorsal, you're finding it almost not like a chevron, but like kind of choppy.
Like inward pattern going down. Yeah.
Yeah. That's I mean, but all you can do is track it, right? And then and
Mm-hmm.
see because I know mine, I don't have all of mine are not 100% hats. I'm all holding them back as pos hats. So these are all things that once I start breeding them and I prove them out to be het pixel, then I'll know exactly, okay, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm tracking. And keeping that in mind moving forward when you're starting to expand that project and create more with different lineage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be more data after this coming season when more people
Oh,
are going
yeah.
to be pairing visuals and creating 100% hets.
Yeah, working so Kristen's saying working on proving any of that out on mine, but it's something specific with pattern.
Yeah.
And it also is very variable too on whether or not you're working with like ACR lines or Pangea lines or because they all kind of have not necessarily the same look to them. And she's
Yep.
saying belly pattern as well. Yeah. Kristen, are you finding that the belly pattern is more speckled? That's what I'm finding with mine. They're patchy. Let's see how about you, Quincy? Are you finding belly pattern
Belly
markers?
pattern. Yeah, like I said, they look like very irregular tigers.
Yeah.
But mine are also soft and super softs.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on with them.
And that's the thing, right? When you start working and they start popping up, you're bound to have other things. Like all mine have, like some of mine have hypo in them, right? My hats that I've held back are predominantly yellows.
All mine are too.
Yeah. And I have one lavender that popped out, and like,
Ooh.
so yeah, it'll be very interesting the next couple of years to see what comes of that project, that's for sure.
Mhm.
And this little Cubert ties us into some really funky stuff too. So this one is a girl that Phantom, that she has seems to have like a dark base, but it's like overall like yellow, but it has all these little speckles, almost like static looking in her. And I thought she was a really interesting looking Phantom. Now you had some thoughts, Quincy, on what could be causing that look, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm also working with the static look on Phantoms as well. I have some that are so speckled, it's crazy. It's like comparable to Dalmatian, but really in more of like in a neater pattern almost. It's weird. Um, but I feel like it's just a big combo creating that between Pin and Tiger and Phantom.
I gotta double check. I have a hunch. I believe this female might be related to the previous Lily White
Mm,
Okay.
by one parent. I'll have to double check that. I think they are. Um, and she was also purchased to work into a pixel project to see how it would interact.
Okay.
Um, but the hatchlings are still quite small, right? So it's kind of hard to tell. I know now to kind of hold off, because I've had some that hatch out looking like Phantom, and then you get to 10 grams and stuff just kind of pops up on them. So that's where I had her for project wise, but she's very weird with her like speckles, and she's just a very weird looking gecko. And I don't know like how Pixel would interact with Phantom, because the way
Yeah.
we're seeing it, right, is pattern.
Hmm.
So how do you use a gene that's removing pattern on a gecko that is essentially almost basically patternless?
Yeah, you kind of need the pattern there to show
Yeah.
Pixel, right?
Like how do you see it? How do you see it?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like my curiosity with that, right? It was like, well, how do you see, and I've popped out, and that's why I've held back some of the Phantoms that I have from the Pixel project, because I'm like, how do you see Pixel in a Phantom?
It's another one for Kristen.
Yeah. Kristen, have you done Phantom Pixels? And then we get into this really cool looking Phantom that you have. So tell us about what's going on with this, because this is really cool. And I was saying looks very similar to like the punk stuff, right?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, it's just a lot of melanin going on with this gecko. There's a lot of black pigment. You can see it really nicely there. Otherwise, it's Phantom, Pinstripe, Tiger, all at play. I love the contrast on this. Probably incorporate this with Tangerine, and try to increase the tiger on them because I really like the way that looks on the sides
So
with
what do you
webbing.
think is causing that dark pattern to really come through the dorsal like that?
Well, this is a dark yellow, and Little Monsters kind of describes yellow as sometimes can be a secondary um, base color, and I think
Hmm.
that's what we're seeing here between the dark base and the yellow.
Gotcha. Kind of similar like the girl I had before, where you're seeing spots come through with that dark base, right?
Hmm.
Through the yellow. Whereas this one, it's not spots, it's more like patches.
Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love these. The look of these, they're a lot of fun. Kristen says these are so fun. We're
So
getting into
cool.
margin, Kristen. And then she says, no, not yet for the phantom pixels.
Okay.
And so this is an example of one of the holdbacks I have from the Pixel project that's phantom, and that's showing. So the speck, it has a bunch of the little speckling a bit that kind of popped up on the side as it aged. This one, when it was little, just looked like a little yellow phantom, and you're seeing more speckling coming up the sides now, and is getting that kind of margin look. Would you
Yep.
say?
Hmm.
So yeah, so this would be a holdback from the Pixel stuff. We're gonna look at some of the margin. Have you? So you're working on trying to figure out how margin is working, or do you have a pretty good idea of how it's interacting? And
Yeah, I mean, margin has been interesting. The first season that I was really working with it, I was just trying to get hypo into it and seeing how hypo would affect the color of the margin markings, because we always see it like that, the very dark pigment. Adding hypo to it was interesting. It made more of it's a very weird color that came out. It's like a purplish, orangish, strange color that came of it. And then going forward, it'll be just trying to create something with margin that's not a phantom,
okay,
because so
have
far
you?
we're only seeing it on phantom.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Have you seen it on anything else other than phantom, or are you able to kind of maybe like do you have margins right now that you're breeding that where you're producing margin hatchlings at
Yeah.
this point? Or
Oh
yeah.
yeah. I
And are
mean,
you seeing
all
it
the
pretty
pictures
early
you're gonna
on?
see, all the pictures you see of my margins were all hatched by me.
Okay. And are you
Yeah.
seeing it like is it something that's pretty noticeable early on? Because like my guy that I hatched out of the pixel stuff, I didn't notice it right away, and it kind of progressively got darker on those spots and then kind of grew thicker. So is that something that you're noticing on yours, or is it pretty obvious once they hatch out, you're like, oh, that's going to be a margin?
So yeah, that was a big question of mine. Mine were all from the beginning, as soon as they hatch, very noticeable with the margin
Okay.
markings. And when I started, posting them more on social media and getting that conversation going about margin, a lot of people were sending me, "Oh, I have this one," and showing me animals that looked like they have margin. And that was my question to everybody: did it hatch like that? Did it have those markings when it hatched? Has it developed over time? And I've noticed most people tell me that it does develop over time.
Okay.
So I don't know what that means for myself, but yeah, they've all been very noticeable out of the egg.
I have hatchling photos of mine. I probably can go back in the thousands of photos of my phone and go
Hmm.
back to, when it was smaller to kind of see. Because my memory is telling me that it didn't. And I remember noticing it more as it
Yeah.
got older. But I could definitely go and confirm that to see if
Okay.
that was actually, if my memory's correct. I've been wrong many times before, as my husband tells me. I always say, oh, I'm right. And it's like, no, I'm not. And then you got this one here, which is a lot more of a contrast that you're seeing with the margin, right?
Yeah, this is one of the best males that have hatched thus far. It's a full sibling to Chaos, which is the one I post about a lot. Um, yeah, the margin is so strong there, and it's got dark pigment on, the lats, the knees, and everything. Just trying to, actually, I would love to get it further down on the face, like more towards the eyes.
Yeah, kind of bring it down more.
Mm,
That last one had it pretty far down,
yeah,
The one before this one,
right? This
yeah,
yeah, the
bottom
it
one on the
one.
kind of,
bottom.
yeah, yeah, that's really cool. And the evolution, like it'll be really neat to see, how far you can take it. And that concludes our last phantom picture for the evening.
Hey,
there's such a variety of it. Like it's hard sometimes to grasp. And especially when you have a lot of other stuff at play, sometimes it can be a little bit tough to kind of see. I mean, for me, I personally find Phantom an easier one for me. But I mean, we all have our strengths, right? And our weaknesses. So I struggle with other things. So, but yeah, like, so I think that's pretty much it. Is anyone else, you have anything else to say on the Phantom subject for this evening?
No, I think Phantom is so cool, and it's responsible for a lot of the oddballs and stuff we see going on, and I think there's a long way to go with it as well.
I just want to point out that when we were planning this, and you're like, what are we going to talk about? And I said, let's talk about Phantom. And you're like, just one thing? We're only going to talk about one thing? It won't fill up much time. We are an hour and 40 minutes in, Quincy, and we have only discussed Phantom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can, when you get in depth with it and you're showing a whole bunch of different examples and interactions, it's really easy to go long in your discussion and fill it over an hour. We got one last question here. Chris is saying, explain margin real quick, please.
Sure. So margin was the dark pigment that you saw in some of those geckos. Kind of starts, yeah. On the dorsal, you'll see those two dark lines on the outside of the dorsal going down towards the head. That's what margin is. So far, it's only been able to be made with Phantom. That's something I'm working to see if anything else is possible with margin without Phantom. But
yeah,
it's a new thing.
When it was new, I think there was confusion too, because some people were saying like reverse pinstripe, and the reverse pinstriping, you're seeing the dark line, which would be below the pinstripe, right? More on the side of the animal. And then you have your pinstripe, and now we have margin, which is on the inside, creating like a margin on the inside of the dorsal.
Yep.
Yeah, really cool. Well, I think we'll end it there for tonight. And I want to thank everybody for coming out. Unless you guys have anything else you want to add, that we miss anything on Phantom that we haven't touched on.
It's fun. It's fun to play with. There's so much to play with. So much to still learn how it interacts with everything else. I don't think that we know everything yet. I think there's a lot to still learn, and go out and get yourself some Phantoms.
I think Phantoms are super underrated, and if you're using them in the right projects, it can make some really cool magical things. Like the stuff that you can create with Phantom, I always get surprised. You know, it's not a boring Jean or plain Jane, as I was saying at the beginning. Oh, here's just a plain Phantom. No, definitely a lot of fun. And I hope you guys all enjoyed our Phantom chat tonight. I think these are fun, these after dark genetic unplugged discussions. And yeah, maybe we'll maybe do this again and talk another gene next time. Maybe you guys could put in the comments what you would like to hear next, and we can vote on it, because that would be a lot of fun. Because we picked this one, but I'd really like to know what people were really interested in hearing, right? And seeing examples, and or maybe having a hard time kind of understanding how it works and so on. So that would be really good. So leave a comment, like this video, and share it. And thank you everyone for joining. And have a good night and the rest of the week. Cheers with our late night coffee that I'm not going to be sleeping now. But that's because I have a lot of gecko chores to do this evening after this. So I'll need the coffee.
We all do.
Right. Yeah. Have a good night, everyone.
I'll be the soul. I'll be the stars in your sky. I'll be your gold as your beauty dies with you.